This is Heavy Radio 21, 2021, first Heavy Radio
Here.
of the new year. So we had 20 episodes in 2020, made it to 20. Most recently, we
numbers.
had Sean Peck from Death Dealer, and we had Dwayne Mark with his brand of Amerikinda, and yeah, we're bringing the Heavy Radio here. We're off to a wild start to the new year, I guess, to say the least. But
Could say that.
we have Scott Brammer joining us here, and Scott and I are both in Des Moines, and now Eric is actually coming at you from a new location.
Yep. I'm out here. Made it out to California. Out here in Laguna Beach. The sun is shining, and yeah, all settled in here. So ready to get back to it and get back to our shows and rocking. And the last two have been great. The really great interviews. So yeah, just looking forward to everything.
You escaped Austin, Tejas before the snow, because I guess
I know.
they got snow today.
Yep, some buddies back in Texas were sending videos and stuff of their dogs playing in the snow. So, yep, escaped that. But yeah, out here.
Sweet, and we have a birthday celebration going on. We're knocking some back for Michael Schenker from the Michael
Yay.
Schenker Group, and originally there in the early Scorpions. He was born this day in 1955. Still going strong, Michael Schenker. I just
Still
saw a new track come out from him the other day.
Yeah, I saw him. I saw him in 2019, and there was just shredding as ever. So
Was that in Austin?
Yeah, it was that a place I called the Garage or something like that. Might have just been the Garage, but yeah, It was like super hot. It was like 110 degrees out, I swear, and I was trying to wear my leather jacket because, of course. And I eventually gave in, had to take it off. It was just too hot, but I wanted to look cool for Michael
Did the
Schenker.
band members rock some heavy gear throughout the show, or did they let loose?
I remember Graham Bonnet was making jokes about how he was like on stage and it was super hot under the lights. So he's like, if I can do it, you guys
Was
can.
he still dressed up like really classy and whatever?
He had down to just the 50s white T-shirt and Ray-Bans. So
Oh, okay, so
still-
he took the tie off for that Austin heat.
suit and tie was off, but it's still 50s style, running strong.
Wear caps and sleeves at this level, Bonnet.
He was flexing his biceps and singing at people, and so yeah, still
Yeah,
Graham Bonnet.
Bonnet.
Checks out.
Yeah, he's one of those dudes that reminds me, like the singer of UFO. He was still definitely really fit and really rocking. Like, I saw him and we actually supported them in UFO and in Des Moines, and he was that kind of same sort of dude, like getting up there but still really, really giving it his all. So I can appreciate that for sure.
Living life they're born to live.
Yeah, totally.
It's like Steel Dragon.
And we have some bits of news for Heavy Radio 21.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we have to celebrate some lives that have passed on here.
Yeah. So first up, Alexei Liho, Children of Bodom, has passed away just this last week. So hold on one second. Alexa, stop.
That's how easy it is to rock some Bodum.
Yes, my Amazon machine here was ready to roll. So that is a kick-ass song.
We were starting the celebration early.
We were, but
And-
yeah. So it's sad to hear of his passing. I believe he's in his early 40s. So
Yeah, 41.
yeah. So thoughts go out to his friends and family and fans. And as we always say, when these unfortunate things happen, the music will live on. And really, really amazing guitar player.
I saw them last a few years back, and it was still where seeing them in like Des Moines, a lot of people were like, still like, what the fuck is this? Like, it was still kind of a new level of intensity with kind of a classic guitar styling shredder. It was really pretty. So it was like there was half the people were loving it, and the other half were like more like trying to understand it. And I always think that's kind of
Oh
cool
yeah.
to see. To see.
Oh yeah, you couldn't put them in a corner because they had like the keyboards like almost like progressive power metal, but then the riffs were just heavy as shit always, and the vocals were heavy. So yeah, just really creative band. Like definitely one of those bands that can just sit down and just listen to a whole album and just kind of appreciate and pick apart the different parts. Just really great guitar player, great band.
The other life we're celebrating is Marcia Zazula, co-founder of Megaforce Records, and she had just passed away, and very instrumental in really the reason why any of us love heavy metal, because they kind of were the independent label that launched Metallica, Anthrax, Testament. They got Ace Frehley through some tough times, Ministry, King's X, Overkill, Raven, new wave of British heavy metal, definitely getting over that hill into being household names with Metallica. Definitely owe a lot to John and Marcia Zazula. And
yeah, we wouldn't be doing this without them, without her.
yeah, you can actually celebrate, if you haven't read. John Zazula chronicled the label's history, but also the history of his relationship with Marcia, in his book Heavy Tales: The Metal, the Music, and the Madness, which came out a couple years ago. And yeah, I couldn't recommend that more. It was a great read and really cool, just hearing the stories, like how Anthrax, when they were kids, basically coming up and trying to bug him to get on shows, and yeah, just crazy that he really helped a lot of these bands kind of form their sound, and was almost like this place for them to start before they got onto the other labels that they would eventually be on.
Yeah, gave them their chance.
Was that
Yeah.
Megaforce
Support.
Records?
Megaforce Records, yeah.
Yep.
I remember the Metal Fist from back in the day.
Yeah, very iconic, and they were almost like parental figures, really, to Anthrax
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Testament
definitely.
and
100%.
Metallica. Like, I think they were there around the time that Dave Mustaine got kicked out of Metallica, so I think he gets into that in the book. And I know Raven was one of their favorite bands, so it's kind of crazy, like one of the bands that was there pretty much at the very beginning, that they stayed close with this whole time. And Raven had some new music come out recently, and they're still ripping too.
Yep. So
So yeah,
definitely a
rock
lot to
and power
celebrate
on Marcia
with.
Zazula as well. So we'll
Definitely.
definitely check out that book if you haven't. There's a lot of stuff to get into with it, but I'll let you dive in on your own. So
Yep. Then last bit of news here, kind of going with the theme of 2021. Stumbled across this article from Revolver. They put together a list of 60 of the most anticipated albums of 2021. Won't go through all of these, of course, but definitely wanted to touch base on some and get you guys' thoughts on some of these, because compounded between just the fact that some of these bands have needed to get a record out for a while. It's about time, like in the cycle, but then also with last year, with a lot of things being delayed, going through this list, there's like a ton of heavy hitters here, and it's shaping up to be a pretty crazy year if even a percentage of these albums make it out. But it sounds like a lot of these bands are ready to. So I wanted to go through, get you guys' thoughts on some of these. First one jumped out at me, just going down the list, is Animals as Leaders. Their last one hasn't been out for, I think, 5 years now. So with Tosin Abasi there leading the helm, I think probably one of the best guitar players out there right now, shredding it. So
yeah,
I'm
I think
definitely
they
hyped
were
for that one.
they were kind of jump started by Bill and Ted 3, because they made the music that was attributed to Wild Stallions, if I noticed that
Yep.
correctly when I saw that.
Yep, 100%. so I'm excited for that one. Um, just mentioned them, but the dudes in Anthrax are back to work. Um, basically, was it Scott Ian said that it's going to be their Dark Side of the Moon, but faster. So I'm excited for that. Um, I think it's been crazy. Was it been maybe 4 years since their last record?
Yeah, it
Maybe
felt
longer.
those records were so strong. They did kind of. I was definitely listening to them for the years to the present, still spinning everything since Joey came back. They've been making some of their best stuff as far as I'm concerned.
Hell yeah. I don't know if you guys listen to these cats, but I'm really excited for the new Baroness record. Um, so I think the last one was in 2019, the Golden Gray record, but the new one's coming out, and I'm pretty excited. They're definitely writing some of the most catchy stuff I feel these days in the metal world. So I don't know if you guys were hyped on that one, because I definitely am.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's always interesting to see. I know they had a brutal accident on tour, and they've kind of bounced back from that, and hopefully they can. I don't know what the status of everyone's uh, that has come back from that and how they're reeling with that. I haven't heard much about it, but it'll be cool to see another record from them for sure.
Definitely. Next up, so we're going in alphabetical here. Next up, we have Cannibal Corpse, which will be their 15th full album since their last one came out in 2017. So that's pretty exciting to have them back out here. I know you're
Yeah.
pretty hyped
I
on
was
the
just
Cannibal
listening
Corpse.
to a podcast with the bass player Alex Webster, and he's such an awesome musician, an awesome dude. I feel like he might be almost like the closest person to that's actively playing now to if you had to compare somebody to Cliff Burton, because he's very classically influenced, very much doing things that are outside the box, and I honestly, from the records of Cannibal Corpse that I had, I didn't even notice a lot until I saw them live. He's got an amazing live tone that really cuts through, and his playing style is sick. And yeah, just listening to him, he would be an awesome person to chat with. Just seems like a person that really is a musician through and through, and always striving to get to a new level. So yeah, I love Alex Webster, and the last time Brammer and I got together, we were actually talking about the former vocalist from Cannibal Corpse and the vocals that he laid down most recently, Chris Barnes.
Uh,
I think he's
And,
trolling all you guys.
I like to think that that might just be what he's capable of. Unfortunately, in some, I guess, sort of fucked up way, I kind of enjoyed it. I don't know. I guess I'm just a little bit fucked up, but
I mean, I'm not
I-
a
maybe I'm a little crazy.
maybe
I'm
I'm
not
a
a
little
purist, but I mean, I feel like it wasn't as bad as the diehard fans thought it was. I mean,
it definitely
it's
got
kind of what I
ripped
expected,
up.
really.
I mean, I also, to some degree, understand the limitations on the human body and the human voice, and to be singing extreme music for many years, especially if you're not trained professionally. There's only so much you can really expect from people. Some people seem almost inhuman, like Ronnie James Dio at the very end was still really powerful, I thought. Halford, I think, is still pushing to new heights on the last Priest record, and there's rare cases like that, but I think most people are going to have, especially when you do extreme vocals of any kind, like there's going to be something going on there that you either stick with that person and know that they're giving their all, or you just I guess, I don't really get, really shitting on it the way a lot of people have, but
I feel
yeah,
like if it was planned, it would have the vocals would have been put down the mix a little bit further than they were. But that's just an
yeah,
outsider's opinion who's not a huge fan of them.
yeah. Um, there's a couple that I have one already. We're right out the gates. I have waiting by my record player, Bloody Hammers, Songs of Unspeakable Terror. I'm really looking forward to digging into that. Coming up already in January, Crystal Viper with the Cult and Tribulation with Where the Gloom Becomes Sound. So there's already some stuff right out the gates that I am looking forward to.
Yeah, and they just to go through. I'll just go through the list here of what's still coming. Jerry Cantrell's first solo record's on its way. Our first one in the years since like 2002. We got
Since Degradation Trip, or did he have one after
yeah.
that?
Well, he's had a couple. He had a single for John Wick,
Yeah.
and a Dark Knight
Marvel
metal.
Dark Knights. Yeah, that was both great songs.
Who else we got? Crowbar's got a new one on the way. Dead Cross, which is one of Mike Patton's other super groups. Dying Wish. Who else? Exodus. Ghost. Gojira. Gore. High on Fire.
Yeah, it's gonna be a big year because everybody was probably hunkered down doing some recording.
Ginger, Judas Priest, Kerry King, King Diamond, Metallica, Megadeth, Mastodon. I mean, it's going to be nuts, man. If all of these albums actually end up dropping, or even a percentage of them, this could be one of the craziest years in metal.
Yeah,
long
and I
time.
know both Anthrax and Megadeth have claimed that they're pushing boundaries and having some extreme elements. So I definitely believe it from Megadeth with Dirk on drums. So I could see that, and yeah. So if Anthrax and Megadeth both drop some nasty sounding records, that'll be a big year.
Yeah. I mean, you got all the big four right there. If Kerry King's doing his solo thing, then that's all four of the big four.
I mean, really,
Just to
we'll get
mention.
into it, but I thought 2020 was a great year for heavy music and for heavy radio, and we'll definitely get into that with our picks.
Top 10
Yeah,
of
and
2020.
yeah, we'll chat with Scott Brammer here a bit about his journey into heavy music, heavy radio. Scott has been law enforcement and corrections. He's been a science fiction writer. So we've always kind of talked about where those worlds meet between science fiction and heavy metal. And what was it that kind of first got you tuned into the heavier side of things, Scott?
I wish I really knew what it was. There's like this metal black hole in the early parts of my life, I remember being a huge Kiss fan in elementary school. I had all the solo albums, all the early albums, and I remember taking the albums to school, and this was probably third or fourth grade, because we had like every Friday there was you got to pick a song that you liked, and the whole class had listened. So that's when I first started to torture all of my friends and acquaintances. But and also my mom ruined those albums by printing my room number
Oh,
on
no.
their faces, which was
Oh,
the
no.
most horrible thing I think you could do. But from there, in Keokuk, Iowa, I was kind of on the rough side of the town, so the school bus was a long ride. So you had people that would bring their boom boxes on the bus trip and sit in back and just crank out some Judas Priest or some Ozzy Osbourne. I know Ozzy Osbourne was really popular on the bus, and even beat it with Eddie Van Halen playing the solo was always a popular one, and I think that song helped bridge kind of the gap between hard rock, heavy metal, and pop music a little bit too. But and just the times growing up, it was the middle '80s. I got caught up in the hair metal craze. Autograph, Quiet Riot was huge in middle school, And
What part of Iowa were you in at that time, or were you in Iowa?
southeast Iowa.
Did any of those bands come through during those time periods? Did you get to see anything live early on?
Burlington, Iowa was probably the closest venue, and my first concert was YNT Ace Frehley, or Fraley, however you want to pronounce it, and Faster Pussycat. That was my first concert, and also missed out on a couple concerts they canceled at the last minute. I remember Wasp was a concert that we got into a car and were going up to see in Davenport, but they canceled it last minute.
That's happened to me too. That's one band that I love that I've never gotten to see, because I drove up to the Surf Ballroom and they wound up canceling. I don't know if it's the band that lots of different problems they've had internally over the years or what, but
Cursed in Iowa, blind in Iowa.
I think that was probably '89. So I'm sure they were going through all kinds of personal problems at that point.
Yeah, and this had to be early 2000s was my experience, so I don't know that it ever stopped.
Right. So unfortunately, back in that day, you were kind of relied on other friends that may have known friends or family members that would take them to the concerts. So my concert experience at that point in time was sort of limited. So I stuck by the whole mail order, ordering records, which was, in my opinion, the best days where you could get like Metal Blade records, mail order. Rifle through the catalog, look at the album covers, and pick out your favorite. And you got to wait 2 weeks for it to come. And
Yeah, here in the States, I have to still give props to Decibel magazine because that's one of the few in print media that's kind of keeping it alive. That I still learn of new bands and learn of new places to get music from print media. At least as far as the United States are concerned, on a scale where they're sending out subscriptions all over the place. It's kind of the last. I guess they're the family video or the video warehouse of which have both fallen under, but
definitely, I think
of print media, heavy metal print media.
and that was back in the days when Hit Parader in the early to mid '80s started emphasizing hard rock and heavy metal bands. So I was definitely walking to 7-Eleven every month looking for that new issue of Hit Parader, and then it evolved into Metal Forces magazine when my parents would give me some money, and Kerrang magazine when that happened. But writing a few bands, trying to get some demos and all that kind of thing. But then it just evolved from there, and probably like you guys, I went through different stages of what kind of music I liked, and went through the thrash metal scene, Metallica, Exodus, Anthrax, all those bands. Went through the grunge phase, and now I've kind of settled on the metalcore music is my type of music that I like the most now.
Yeah, that's cool. And I know. So you got some science fiction thereabouts style writing under your belt. What kind of got you into? When did you know you were inspired to do some of that writing?
I've always liked to sit down and put my thoughts on paper, and I'm sort of more into dystopian fiction, and some of my favorites would be like George Orwell and Jack London. And at first it was kind of like, well, I'll see if I can write anything in their type of style, and then eventually I just, it's just a process. It's a continuing process. I'm still working on it, and hopefully one day I'll get better, and people will see more of my work.
The Jack London reference, I love all the Jack London that I've read to date, and have you heard of the band Skullfist? I can only assume they have a track called "Call of the Wild" that I can only assume was inspired by Jack London. But either way, it's a great song.
Yeah, it's a
Definitely. I
great
mean, he
band.
has a great body of work, and probably his best stuff is not that well known, including
Mm,
the one of the first dystopian novels, The Iron Heel. Definitely one to check out if you're not if
I think
you're
he was
fans if you're
really
not a fan of fascism. That'd be a good one to
he
check
was
out.
really great at shredding the establishment. That's for sure. I feel like definitely we need some more eloquent people to take down
Definitely, this is the guy that
the
went over
current
to
bastards.
this is the guy that went over to England and lived with the poor for a while to write a book, and also took trains across the country to march on Washington D.C. for the unemployed. So he has a very interesting history. Not all perfect, but definitely interesting and you know, pretty inspiring to say the least.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, totally. I think very much so, and I think there is a very always kind of a very interesting crossover between science fiction and heavy metal. There's a lot of great bands that are really making what I would call science fiction art with their music,
Hmm.
and
We
or at
probably
least
got
a
a
lot of
couple in
bands that,
our 2020 list even.
yeah, I'm sure that we do.
It's
I
And I
wanted to
guess
give out
since
a so for 2021. I just heard Chevelle's new single yesterday, and that looks pretty interesting for the upcoming year. And I think another band to check out would be Spirit Box. They put out some pretty interesting singles and EPs lately. I know they got an album coming out this year too. So those would be a couple bands that I'd be looking at.
Hell yeah. Yeah, this year's gonna be crazy for music. It's something already awesome to look forward to.
yeah, and I guess for our for our heavy radio 21 tracks, we're gonna do 10 strong tracks from 2020, and I guess since we got 10 tracks, maybe we'll. Do you want to all go down our 10 individually?
Yeah, we could, might as well. I think that'd be the easiest. We can just each do our 10
All right.
and comment
Who
on them.
wants to fire it off?
I'll go since I only have. I went with 8, and I wanted to pick song. This year there was a lot of good singles, but I thought I would pick songs from strong albums rather than just go with just a good single.
Sure.
So I went with Haken, Invasion, which was an early on favorite of mine. Um, Currents with Kill the Ache. Make Them Suffer with Bones. Orbit Culture with Mirror Slave. Kingdom of Giant with Night Shift. Soul with Looking to Fight. Fever 333 with Supremacy. And Killer Be Killed with Intercom. Let me get this straight here. Intercom from Outer Storms. Those were the 8 I picked.
Brad.
Yeah, definitely some heavy hitters in there, and that's what I love about the guests we've had on so far through 20 episodes is people do kind of pick up a theme, and definitely so we'll get those in the playlist and check out those full albums for some Scott Brammer's heavy hitters of 2020.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, Eric, what did you come out? Who came out in your list for 2020?
Yeah, these are definitely the cats that rocked me last year. It was a long year, so these definitely got me through. No particular order, of course. These are just 10 that altogether most listened to. First up, I have Havoc with Post Truth Era. I feel like those cats have just been getting better and better uh, with every release.
Oh yeah, and
Um,
slaying the live show too.
yeah, they're legit. Unleash the Archers, same story there. The song Abyss, um, great band. Singer is amazing. Whole band's great. Singers, particular standout. Songs are great. Hell Tripper, Spectres of the Blood Moon Sabbath. Um, this is one of the best thrashes. Just rip it and rip it, tear shit up songs from all last year. So definitely check out Hell Tripper. Rising Steel with Fight Them All. Just great classic kind of power area, that kind of zone metal. Great song. Venom Prison with Damon Vulgaris. These guys are definitely getting a buzz around the metal scene, and the song definitely shows why. Ambush with Hellbiter, another old school metal, like throwback, new wave traditional heavy metal. Ambush is great. Definitely one of the best bands in that genre, doing the old school thing out there. It's straight up like old school Priest vibe in this song. Thunder Mother with Driving in Style, kind of like classic rock inspired, maybe more metal, super catchy song. That's one of those that just gets caught in your head when you start singing like a chorus when you're just doing whatever, and you're like, oh yeah, that song. Solicitor with Betrayer, great band. Their full-length album came out last year, and just the whole thing's brutal beginning to end, super catchy again. The song Betrayer also kind of that Priest vibe, even like the first couple Priest records. Melody-wise, great band. Burning Witches with the Circle of Five, another amazing band. Another one just keeps getting better with every release. And Raiders, I Still Function, super catchy song and heavy as shit. So yeah, those are just 10 of the 10 songs that I definitely gave tons of spins last year. Definitely 10 bands, period, to check out if you have not yet.
Hell yeah. And I guess one thing that I love is too, like, there was so much heavy music in 2020 that I think all our lists will be different, which is crazy. You know, people that have a shared bond of liking a lot of the same heavy metal bands, and we all have pretty much different lists for 2020, which is wild. I think we could have, you know, a ton of different guests, and the list would be different. So I think that's really cool. I gotta, you know, knock one back to that. Cheers to that. And before I get into my list, we got to pay some bills. We got a
Commercial
word from
break.
a sponsor. This episode of Heavy Radio 21 is brought to you by Chunk Billy's Chunky Peanut Butter, and also by Large Ulrich's Danish Berry Jam. So definitely mix those together. Take your taste buds over the wall. And yeah, hit the lights with some Danish jam.
Somewhere Billy Milano screamed into the darkness.
Billy Milano's "Fuck you, pay me." He wants his cut from that commercial.
She's at the bottom of the pool.
Yeah, and I know me and Brammer have shared some MOD over the last year, back and forth. The ballad.
What I used to.
Billy Milano.
That's when I first started. When I first started lifting, it was SOD
Oh yeah.
and Suicidal Tendencies.
That'll
Those
get
were
you
the two
going,
bands
man.
you listened
Yeah.
to in the high school gym.
Yeah, those will
Yeah,
get you
dude.
going.
Get the NutraSweet,
Go get ripping.
ripping, and drink Pepsi while you're ripping.
Only Pepsi. That's all. Just one.
That's good for your gains. I hear is Pepsi.
That's all you wanted.
Yeah, I've encountered that dude a number of times. Mike, really solid dude. Always seems he's very much who you think he is from his music videos. He just
He is who
seems.
we thought he is.
Yeah, he was still a great front man, even in the last couple years, really riling up crowds, and goes on these psycho Mike rants that are pretty epic. Definitely knows how to
You love to see it.
how to work a room, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, same with Billy Milano too. We've talked about it before, I'm sure, but that jumping off a tall speaker, I don't know, I've never seen really anything that tops that. Like those
Great moments in metal history.
possible multiple deaths could have came from that, and somehow the show went on,
Metal gods.
almost on, no stopping the rock, the thrash, the crossover.
Is
But
Billy
yeah,
even
so
doing anything these days?
recently, I guess he's in Texas and he has some group of guys from around those parts that did a record a couple years ago. So I guess he's kind of semi-retired, but I think there's still, every once in a while he gets the inkling to put out some new music and play some shows, at least around Texas. Um, a couple years back, Eric and I got to hang with him, and he came through Des Moines with a group that he was running as MOD, and it was great show, great time. He was really happy to hang out with everyone there, so
Yeah.
I
You
feel
got a
like it's
photo
always
somewhere.
always good to see that. And yeah, I think we might have some at our heavy radio page when we were hanging out with Billy. But without further ado, I'll get into my tracks.
Yeah.
I'm actually starting things off with it was a take on Dio's song "Rainbow in the Dark" by the band Chemist, and I just love this cover. I couldn't spin it enough. I really like Chemist's original music, so don't get it twisted on that. But this cover is fucking amazing. They also did "Down in a Hole" from Alice in Chains in the last year, which is also cool. But this "Rainbow in the Dark," I just thought was a really cool and creative cover. Chemist is out of Denver, Colorado, so not too far away from Bramer and myself, and definitely I think they keep putting out quality stuff, and definitely looking forward to what's next from them. Uh,
Yo, yeah.
Next up on my Heavy Radio 21 tracks, I have Armored Saint with Do Wrong to None. I really
Good
thought
band.
this was a strong Armored Saint record. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. If you like, I would say if you like almost any period of Armored Saint, any period of John Bush's work, there'll be something to like in here. Armored Saint has always been one to be creative, so there's definitely some stuff that maybe is not exactly what you would expect, but there's definitely a lot for fans of really any period of Armored Saint to dig into. I think John Bush sounds great, still as full of energy as ever. Check out and crank Armored Saint with Do Wrong to None.
Yo, yeah.
Next up for me is a band called Gamma Bomb with the track Miami Super Cops, and they are from Newry, Northern Ireland, in the Republic of Ireland. So basically, to me, I think this is the closest thing to, like, if you think of the funnest period of thrash, maybe like that early Testament and Anthrax, when like stages were just venues were just a sea of people going crazy. This definitely reminds me of that, and they seem like a group of great people, great players making thrash metal that maybe doesn't take itself so seriously. That definitely, it makes me laugh, but it also has vocals that are really strong, and kind of remind me of how Anthrax got Joey Belladonna. Like, it's fast, but you can understand a lot of what Philly is saying on vocals, and they just seem like they've been gelling ever since the early 2000s. So definitely check it out. Gamma Bomb, Miami Super Cops.
Yeah.
Next on my list is a band that's been in heavy rotation pretty much as long as I've been listening to music, Metal Church with Dead on the Vine. And again, I almost feel like I willed it into happening. Mike Howe coming back to Metal Church. Like I was one of those people that wanted it to happen ever since he left. And actually got to do a Skype call with him, and that kind of when you talked about writing letters to people in bands, Brammer, this is probably the most recent time that that actually happened to me. I just kind of reached out and wound up getting a Skype call from Mike Howe, and it was fucking awesome. He was just really excited to talk to like a super fan, and I was excited to hear from him and see him, and so it was really cool. But this is Dead on the Vine, which I think is just a really strong Metal Church track. If you like any of the stuff with Mike Howe, definitely crank it. Really, really good. Strong track for 2020 regardless, but also very strong track for Metal Church. Next up was just Death Dealer with Running with the Wolves. This is actually a track we featured on our episode second to last, which was with Sean Peck, the vocalist, and definitely this group of people is pretty tough to fuck with. Mike LaPond from Symphony X on bass, Ross the Boss on guitar, and Sean Peck from Cage on vocals. It was great to get him in there. I know he was really excited about all the new music they've been making. Strong track, Death Dealer with Running with the Wolves.
Yeah.
Next up for me was Cirith Ungol with Cirith Ungol from Before Tomorrow is the track from the album Forever Black. And one thing that has been really cool about this is that Jarvis from Night Demon has seemed to play like a pretty important role in getting Cirith Ungol back out there. He's been playing bass for them, Jarvis Leatherby, and so it's cool that you got kind of one of the new school leaders working to release some awesome music, get some awesome live shows from one of the really classic heavy metal bands. So
Yeah, totally.
really cool thing that's taken place there. It's still definitely a lot of J.R.R. Tolkien inspired Cirith Ungol heavy metal, very crank it loud. That's a Cirith Ungol with Before Tomorrow from 2020's Forever Black. Next up for me is Bloody Hammers with Hands of the Ripper.
Nice.
I've definitely brought this band up a bunch over the year. Probably one of my favorite bands of the last decade. It's a spooky power couple putting out music to me that sounds, kind of put in a blender, some classic Danzig, some Typo, and that sort of stuff. And then next up for me is Ross the Boss with Maiden of Shadows from Born of Fire. Again, Ross the Boss coming up twice on the list, once with Death Dealer, another with his own band, and Maiden of Shadows from Born of Fire. Next up for me is Testament with Dream Deceiver. And this track, really the last few Testament records have never left my heavy rotation, but this one might be one of my favorite Testament songs to date. And rounding out my 2020 list is Spirit Adrift with Ride in the Lights. One of the raddest bands, I think, of between Spirit Adrift and Bloody Hammers. For me, they kind of duel it out as some of the most rad bands to come out in the last decade. And they're from Phoenix, Arizona. And Nate Garrett kind of willed this into being, with great songs, into a full touring band. So yeah, definitely check it out, Spirit Adrift. I don't think you could go wrong with picking up this album and cranking the track Ride in the Light.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll second what you said. It's cool that all three of us straight up metalheads all have 3 completely different lists, and I'm definitely gonna check out all the bands you guys have picked there. And yeah, for listeners out there, we will add all 30 of these tracks if they hadn't already been on the list. We'll make sure they are on the Heavy Radio playlist. They'll also be attached to the playlist for this episode on YouTube. So definitely go check out those bands and see what they got. It's a lot of good stuff on these lists, and
Yeah, we
I
got
don't-
Marco and Eric and Scott Brammer bringing you the Heavy Radio 21, and
in
it kind of
2021.
is just starting to feel like there's some light at the end of the tunnel for being able to see live shows again. And
Oh, yeah.
you know, for me, it might be a little early to be booking it, but I see some are, so we'll see. Hopefully, they can. Hopefully, the earliest dates people have booked, they'll be able to come through with them.
Yep, we're going towards a good direction, and I'm excited. And there's, we're definitely not out of the woods, of course. And but there are, all the new music coming out. There's definitely things to look forward to in the music world and the metal world. So,
Yeah, and it's still
excited.
really important to, wherever you would see local shows, if they're still open, go and buy some merch and try to support them through this period, so we can get some of these acts coming through that we've talked about as soon as possible.
Hell yeah, I'll be out there as soon as it's safe to do so. I'll be out there rocking, headbanging, buying merch.
Hell yeah. Heavy Radio 21. Crank it.